In youth, love is often at its most intense and at the same time at its most vulnerable. The first feeling leaves a lasting impression on every young person. In most cases, this is not an easy experience, but it is a necessary one. Later, it helps a person build a truly strong family and a sincere relationship. Sometimes, however, the situation develops so unfavorably that first love destroys a life and can even end in death. Fabiana Luzzi was born into a close and loving family in Corigliano Calabro, Calabria, Italy. She was a very energetic, active, and strong-willed girl. These character traits became especially clear during her teenage years. Fabiana found it very difficult when her parents told her what she had to do. From an early age, she began thinking about breaking free from the care of her mother and father. All of this led to regular conflicts. That is why Fabiana moved out while she was still 16. She settled near her family, in a rented apartment, and at the same time took a part-time job so she could support herself. At first, however, her income was not enough, and her parents helped her financially. Even so, Fabiana Luzzi was a good student. Her parents had great hopes for their daughter. In the year 2013, she was 16 years old. She attended high school, loved dancing, and took accounting courses. That was the field in which she planned to build her future success. In the springs, Fabiana was still living alone and was in an unstable relationship with a boy. They got together and broke up again, despite her parents' concern. When Fabiana began living on her own, the family situation gradually became calmer. There were fewer conflicts now. It seemed as if the girl was coping well with adult life. May 24th, 2013, was an ordinary day. No one suspected that everything would unfold differently from usual. Early in the morning, the schoolgirl went to school. She stayed in contact with her parents by mobile phone. Fabiana regularly kept in touch with them so that her mother would not worry. She was supposed to return to her parents' house after lunch. That same evening, her parents were waiting for their daughter because the whole family was preparing together for an upcoming summer trip. They had planned a family vacation. Mario Luzzi and Rosaria Ferrara waited in vain for their daughter to return from school. They became worried and tried to reach her by phone, but the girl did not respond. The parents did not panic immediately. Instead, they went to her rented apartment. Despite their persistent knocking, no one opened the door. At their request, the landlord gave them a spare key. When the mother and father entered the apartment, they saw that their daughter was not there. Fabiana still did not answer any calls. The worried parents then decided to check the school, where Fabiana might still have remained after classes. Mario and Rosaria had almost reached the school when they saw two classmates and friends of their daughter on the street. They asked the girls about Fabiana, but both said she had left directly after class and that they had not seen her since. The mother and father could not wait any longer. The entire situation was too alarming. They contacted the police and reported their daughter missing. At first, the family members and the police assumed that the girl had simply run away. Something similar had happened about a year earlier, before she had received permission to live on her own. Back then, the escape had helped convince her parents that it was better to make concessions than to continue the conflict. In the spring of 2012, she had gone to Bologna. Even then, her parents had immediately turned to the police. So search for Fabiana began. Investigators checked the schoolgirl's immediate circle and discovered that she had long planned to run away if the conflicts with her family could not be resolved. She was found quickly. Friends said that the rebellious teenager had stayed with acquaintances. Although no one knew her exact address, the girl kept in contact with her family, which made the situation much easier. Rosaria tried to convince herself that her daughter had run away again, but there were two doubtful points. First, unlike during her first escape, she had not contacted anyone at all. Her mobile phone was switched off. Second, the girl had no reason to run away. She was already living alone and was quite satisfied with her situation. The Carabinieri immediately began questioning the missing schoolgirl's male and female friends. She had a very large circle of acquaintances, but the parents had already called some of these young people. No one had any idea where 16-year-old Fabiana was. However, there were several valuable clues. The police officers went to the school that the girl attended. There they wanted to speak with classmates and teachers who might have noticed something unusual. Her friends immediately said that Fabiana had been nervous that day because she was supposed to meet her boyfriend. One of the girls saw 17-year-old Davide Morrone meet Fabiana near the school after class. He arrived on his scooter, which he often used to pick her up. After that, apparently no one saw the schoolgirl again. Therefore, her boyfriend was the last person known to have had contact with the missing girl. Her friends reported that an argument began right after his arrival. The young man immediately accused the girl of being unfaithful, but she denied everything. Since the search for Fabiana continued and there were no decisive leads, investigators decided to speak with her boyfriend. Unfortunately, he did not answer calls. Davide was not at home either. His parents said that he had gone to school early in the morning, but had not returned since. Because the boy could not be found immediately, investigators continued, looking into the couple's difficult relationship. Thanks mainly to Fabiana's closest circle, a clear picture emerged. The young lovers were extremely jealous of each other. Davide had been unfaithful to his girlfriend, and she had serious reasons to suspect him of cheating. Once, she told her friends that she had caught him kissing another girl. That was exactly why they broke up. After some time, however, the couple decided to get back together. Everyone was questioned. The only person police could not speak with immediately was Davide, Fabiana's boyfriend. He was also a student. He attended upper secondary school and was preparing for graduation. In the year 2013, he was 17 years old. According to Fabiana's friends and relatives, Davide continued trying to talk to the girl after their breakup and went to her home several times. It seemed as if he could not accept rejection. For almost a whole day, no one could find him until the young man finally appeared at the hospital. He had severe burns on his face and hands, so serious that he needed medical help. His condition immediately attracted the attention of the police. His injuries resembled the consequences of improper handling of flammable substances. But what had he used them for? At first, there was no answer to that question. The young man was not cooperative and refused to explain what had happened and how he had received those injuries. Only under pressure did he claim that unknown people had allegedly attacked him on the street. The perfect gift for the Advent season. Available on Amazon. Link in the description. Davide, did indeed have defensive injuries on his hands, but they looked more like injuries he had received while someone else was fighting for her life. It was unclear where such burns could have come from. Since Davide did not give a convincing explanation, investigators did not believe him. At the same time, he categorically denied having anything to do with Fabiana's disappearance and insisted that they had not seen each other that day. All of this made investigators suspicious because several witnesses confirmed that the two had met after class. There were many inconsistencies in the young man's statements, which convinced investigators that he was lying. Of course, mere suspicion was not enough. Evidence was needed to understand what had really happened. Davide was not released immediately. Experienced investigators were certain that he was hiding the truth. Under pressure, the young man finally began to break. His story changed. First, he admitted that he had indeed picked the girl up from school. Then he claimed that he had taken her to a friend, had not seen her since. That statement, however, was quickly disproved. No one from Fabiana's closest circle had seen her after class. When he was confronted with his lie, Davide changed his statement again. Now, he admitted that he had picked up his girlfriend on his scooter and that they had started arguing near the school. The reason was his renewed suspicion that she had someone else. According to the boy, the argument continued throughout the entire ride. As soon as they left the school, Fabiana, who was sitting behind him, tried to justify herself, but he countered her words and continued accusing her, while she insisted that she had no one else. The couple did not go far. They went to an isolated place, a few kilometers from the school. There, the young man lost his patience. He stopped and got off the scooter. The conflict flared up again. They shouted at each other until the boy finally lost control. He said that everything between them was over. After saying that, he jumped on to the scooter and drove away, claiming that he had no idea what happened to the girl afterward. Investigators found out where everything had taken place. 2 police officers checked the locations, but found nothing suspicious. At the same time, they spoke with Fabiana's relatives. Everyone said that Davide could not, under any circumstances, simply break up with the girl and leave. They described him more as obsessed or controlling, a young man who could not let Fabiana go, and who continued pursuing her even though she had tried several times unsuccessfully to separate from him. The Carabinieri's suspicions that the teenager had behaved inappropriately were indirectly confirmed, but hard evidence was still missing. On May 25, 2013, a call came in to the local police station. A resident of a rural area only a few kilometers from the school said that he had discovered something suspicious. He had been working in a citrus grove when he came across traces of a fire. If at first glance, this seemed like a small detail, but the man that he had found pieces of clothing at the site of a larger fire, and they looked like women's clothing. The police had a detailed description of the clothes Fabiana had been wearing on the day she disappeared, and immediately confirmed that the burned fabric matched that description. Now the situation seemed even more disturbing. However, because investigators had not yet found a body, no one drew premature conclusions. They turned to Davide again, but he continued denying everything and claimed that he had no idea what could have happened. It was noteworthy that the fire site was near the place to which the young man had already led the police. He had probably wanted to mislead the investigation deliberately. Another day passed, during which Davide spoke with investigators in the presence of the prosecutor and his defense lawyer. Finally, he began to give in. Up to that point, he had told several versions. They changed with every new interrogation. But now the young man decided to tell the truth. He admitted that there had been an argument between him and the missing girl, and that it had escalated. He claimed that when Fabiana attacked him, the situation got out of control, and when Davide stopped, it was already too late. He had indeed started a fire to destroy traces of the crime. The young man indicated where the girl's body could be found. It had been left not far from the burned area. When investigators arrived at the place he described, the search for Fabiana was over. The schoolgirl was dead, but the condition of the remains was poor. Therefore, further laboratory examinations were required for full identification and to clarify the details. All available material was sent for forensic analysis. The victim was finally identified through dental records. The deceased was indeed 16-year-old Fabiana Luzzi. When her family learned this, everyone was deeply shaken. The schoolgirl died only a few weeks before her next birthday. According to Davide, Fabiana attacked him first, and he became so angry that he could no longer restrain himself. The boy grabbed his knife, which he claimed he carried for everyday purposes, and began stabbing the girl's body. Although he described this as self-defense, it was obvious that more than 20 stab wounds did not look like an attempt to defend himself, especially since the boy himself had only minor injuries, which looked more like accidental cuts he had caused himself during the attack. The interrogations continued. Despite his lies, Davide was the only person who could tell details about the schoolgirl's death. Investigators managed to get more information from him. The teenager now said that Fabiana had fallen to the ground and showed no signs of life, which was why he set the body on fire, allegedly to hide traces of the crime. But that also turned out not to be entirely true. By then, the forensic examination had confirmed that the girl was still alive when her body was set on fire. This was shown by her lungs, which were filled with smoke. She had been burned alive. The Carabinieri suspected that the perpetrator was, again, not telling the whole truth, but was trying to minimize the extent of his guilt. After some time, the killer finally confessed that Fabiana had indeed still been alive when he poured gasoline over her and set her on fire. He saw that she was breathing and even trying to get up, but he could not allow that. According to the medical examiner's report, the more than 20 knife wounds the girl had suffered were not immediately fatal because they had not struck vital organs or arteries. She could have bled to death, but that would have taken time. If Fabiana had received help in time, she could have been saved. That, however, did not fit the perpetrator's plan. The clarified circumstances only confirmed the version that this was a deliberate and cruel crime. Numerous witnesses pointed to tensions between the victim and Davide. Shortly before her death, they had gone through one of the most turbulent phases of their relationship. Fabiana's best friend said that the victim had broken up with her problematic boyfriend and was trying to put her private life back in order. She probably had a new boyfriend, and for such an obsessed young man, that was a serious reason for the attack. Investigators noticed how cold-blooded the young man was. It seemed as if Davide had no emotions at all. The boy continued resisting. Every word had to be practically dragged out of him. In total, the Carabinieri needed 2 days of intense interrogations before they obtained the most plausible version of events. According to the young man, he met Fabiana that day after she had finished class. He wanted to talk once again about their relationship, but she clearly told him that everything between them was over. Davide did not accept her rejection and believed that she only wanted him to pay more attention to her, that she was provoking him so he would chase after her and fight for her. But the boy was wrong. Fabiana was determined and did not want to resume the relationship. In the heat of the conflict, she said that she already had another boyfriend and therefore had no intention of getting back together. With that, she signed her own death sentence. Out of jealousy, her ex-boyfriend reached for a knife and stabbed her more than 20 times. All of this happened in a lonely, isolated part of the city on the edge of Corigliano Calabro. No one could stop the killer, and he did not stop even when Fabiana fell to the ground and was bleeding. She was still alive. But even at that moment, Davide had no intention of calling for help. Instead, he went to took a small canister of gasoline and poured it over her while she was still alive. Even after Davide set the schoolgirl on fire, she continued moving, but she could no longer do anything to save her life. This heartbreaking story attracted the attention of the public and the media. The Luzzi family did not want to believe that their daughter had lost her life so tragically. Everyone remembered her as a cheerful and very active girl who had recently been desperately searching for freedom and independence. This was probably one of the reasons for her death. When Fabiana moved out of her home and began living independently, the schoolgirl hardly spoke with her mother and father anymore about her relationship. Most of the time, she shared her worries and experiences with her girlfriends. Because of this, her parents could not fully recognize the danger of the situation. Fabiana's close friends described her relationship with Davide as unhealthy and destructive. She quickly became disappointed in the boy, whose behavior was marked by obsession and extreme jealousy. He often provoked conflicts. The reason was almost always some boy who merely passed by on the street or greeted her. It was difficult to do anything about it because the girl was still attending school. Her relatives knew about the breakup, but they did not suspect that Davide was continuing to behave like a stalker and that they were still meeting. The situation remained tense. During the separation, the girl complained to her friends about her boyfriend and wanted to go to the police to file a report. She hoped that this would help calm her intrusive ex-boyfriend. The young man's behavior was alarming and increasingly threatening. Nevertheless, for unexplained reasons, his parents were not worried about their son's condition. There were many witnesses who described Davide as an aggressive, withdrawn, and strange young man. He had difficulty making new acquaintances. Signs of violent tendencies were observed in him, but his relatives reacted with frightening indifference. Davide had always been a problematic teenager with possessive and dominant traits. According to his former girlfriend, she had needed adult help at the time to frighten the unpredictable young man enough. Only after that did he leave her alone. Fabiana, however, wanted to solve the problems herself. Davide had a difficult personal history and behavioral problems from early childhood. Also, this was worsened by domestic violence. to which he was exposed after his parents' divorce. His first stepfather was an alcoholic. He drank every day, provoked conflicts, and beat Davide and his mother. Although they soon separated from that man, the experience left deep scars. It is possible that this was the source of his aggression and inner turmoil. He could not let Fabiana go when she wanted to free herself from his pressure. Against this background, investigators assumed that Davide had once again not told the whole truth. The circumstances suggested that the young man had deliberately lured the girl to a lonely area because he wanted to kill her. The gasoline canister also supported the idea of a premeditated act. Normally, the teenager did not carry extra fuel with him. He rarely left the city on his scooter, and the vehicle was economical enough to manage with a full tank. What shocked everyone most, however, was the cruelty with which he killed the delicate girl. Her friends were convinced that Fabiana could not have gone voluntarily with her boyfriend to such an isolated place. She must have felt immediately that something was wrong. Fabiana Luzzi's funeral took place on May 28, 2013. The ceremony was held in the town hall, where around 5,000 people had gathered. Everyone was deeply moved by the fate of the 16-year-old schoolgirl. By then, local television stations and newspapers were already reporting on the tragedy. Once again, society began asking questions about femicide and the vulnerability of young women who are in relationships with manipulative and controlling partners. During the funeral service, not only family members and friends of the deceased spoke, but also the leader of the local religious community to which Fabiana belonged. Everyone expressed deep sympathy to the victim's family and voiced the hope that the perpetrator would receive the punishment he deserved to the full extent of the law. People again asked themselves how such outbreaks of violence, which regularly claim the lives of young people, could be prevented. Various organizations that work to protect girls and boys joined the discussion. In the meantime, Davide Morrone was arrested. The man confessed and was now waiting in custody for his sentence. Fabiana's relatives insisted that, considering the brutality, the planned nature of the act, and the attempt to destroy traces of the crime, he should be treated as an adult. The prosecution agreed with this view, but the judge decided that Davide should be tried as a minor. The boy's psychological conditions also raised many questions. There were suspicions that he had serious problems. Several witnesses, including his ex-girlfriend, pointed to his unusual and unstable behavior. This required additional examinations, but experts found nothing that would justify limiting his criminal responsibility. Davy was declared fully capable of understanding his actions, and therefore took part in the court proceedings. Because of his confession, the case was handled through a simplified procedure. The Luzzi family attended every hearing. The parents of the deceased wanted to see with their own eyes that the perpetrator would receive his just punishment. After the trial, Davide was found guilty and sentenced to 22 years in prison. He was dissatisfied with the sentence. His lawyer continued fighting for a reduction and filed several appeals. He referred to the teenager's mental state and claimed that it had been a mistake to declare him fully responsible. The lawyer insisted that not all procedural rules had been followed when reviewing his client's emotional condition. The appeals court reduced the sentence to 18 years of imprisonment. This happened after he was declared partially responsible. That conclusion was reached by an independent expert commissioned by the defense. In addition, during the review of the case, premeditation was excluded as an aggravating circumstance. For this reason, the defense now had the opportunity to continue its work, and there was a danger that the perpetrator could receive an even lighter sentence. Because Davide was a minor at the time of the crime, Fabiana's family could not appear in court as civil plaintiffs. However, they believed that the killer had received too mild a punishment and continued putting pressure on the justice system to obtain a harsher outcome. One stage of the court process took place in 2015. The court ruled that Davide and his parents had to pay compensation to the Luzzi family. The family of the accused disagreed with this decision. The victim's family lawyer, however, insisted that the perpetrator's parents also bore responsibility for raising their son. They had created unsuitable living conditions for him, had failed to teach him moral values, and had not exercised enough control to prevent this crime. The court found that Davide's parents had not only failed to provide the necessary supervision, including medical care, but had also failed to give him the possibility of receiving an appropriate education. In the judge's view, they had not supervised the teenager in time and had missed the moment when his psychological problems began. No evidence was found of visits to psychiatrists. David, therefore, did not receive the necessary treatment and care, which ultimately contributed to the tragedy. The father of the murdered girl, Mario Luzzi, expressed his outrage toward the Ministry of Justice and even personally appealed to the president. The reason was that Davide had received a reduction while serving his sentence. He had behaved well in prison, had not provoked conflicts, and had willingly participated in a rehabilitation program. As a result, the young man was given the possibility of regularly receiving temporary release. Fabiana's family criticized this decision as completely incomprehensible. They described the laws as ones that protect not the victims, but the perpetrators. Luzzi spoke openly about the pain of losing his daughter, a pain that was only intensified by such leniency toward the perpetrator. The victim's family has never forgotten their daughter. Since 2013, they have held a vigil every year on May 24th and organized informational events to tell Fabiana's tragic story. They have connected all of this with a committed fight against gender-based violence. These activities attracted the attention of organizations that deal with similar issues at a higher level. In the year 2025, the anniversary of Fabiana Luzzi's death was marked by a Center Fighting Justice, an organization that offers legal and psychological support to women suffering in problematic relationships with aggressive partners. It is noteworthy that the events took place in a municipal suburban park where Fabiana Luzzi Square is now located. This place has become a symbol of remembrance and warning. Unfortunately, however, all these initiatives have had no effect on overly lenient legislation, which continues to cause outrage in society. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.